But where did he get the idea for that? Well, you remember this? The Walkman, the Sony Walkman. It was the first portable entertainment system. And it's actually the precursor of the iPod. Now, this is a really, really wonderful thing. And the beauty of this is you could put it on the side of your, your belt, and you could walk around and you could play cassette tapes. And you could take your music with you. And wasn't that fantastic? Don't look at me like I'm stupid. You know what I'm talking about. And of course, then there was this really great thing. They put it on CDs. And CDs were even better than the cassette tapes. But, there was a problem. There were some problems with that. One of the problems was, you go around with a pocket full of CDs or cassette tapes. It wasn't quite as easy. You could make your own thing, but it wasn't quite as easy as you could do with the iPod. But hey, that was cool. But where did the idea for the Walkman come from? Well, it actually came from this old tape player. 1979, the Walkman came on board, and the reason the Walkman was created was because the president of Sony was flying back and forth from Japan to the United States trying to get his new company started. By the way, in case you don't know, Sony was not the original name of the company. It had a Japanese name, but they knew it didn't fit the American market. So because they were focused on sound, they named the company after the Latin word sonus, the word for sound. And so that's where the name Sony came from. That's just a little parenthesis. But he was flying back and forth. And as he flew back and forth on these trans-Pacific flights, he would get bored. Because if you remember, way back in 1979, they didn't have the little TV screen on the back of the seat in front of you. And he didn't have all this little stuff. So what he would do, he loved classical music. And he would listen to classical music as he flew across the Atlantic. The only problem was, the only tape recorders were these big old tape recorders. So in order to listen to classical music, he would have to get a second seat in first class for his tape recorder. And he would put that beside him. He would put on these big old headphones, and he would listen to his classical music as he flew back and forth. And one day he went into his engineers and said, I need something smaller. And they were working on a portable tape recorder. They were working on a portable tape recorder, but they could get it to play, but they couldn't get it to record. And so they had put it aside and said, this is useless. And he said, let's use that. And so they put the music on cassette tapes, and they didn't even have batteries for that little bitty thing. They had to create their own batteries, which created quite a quandary, because by the time he got to the United States, the batteries were gone, and he didn't have batteries to take back with him. It created real problems for him. But they created this Walkman, and he thought it was a great idea. And in another division, they were working on portable headphones, and so he pulled the portable headphone idea and put it with this little portable player and cassettes, and they redesigned the batteries to work for that particular unit. And he came to America with his little bitty thing, and he started trying to sell it, and Americans said, nobody will ever buy that. That became the #1 seller for Sony. Their most productive, profitable device in the company's history. But where did that tape idea come? 1940s, 1950s technology, magnetic tape technology. Great big old things. When I graduated from high school, it wasn't in the 40s and 50s. It was in the very, very late 60s. But they gave me this big old tape player to take off to college with me. It wasn't very serviceable, but it was a little bit better than this, which was invented in about 1877. And that was the phonograph. And the phonograph, invented by Thomas Edison, Really cool story. Thomas Edison invented that while he was trying to create a digital answering machine for a telegraph. I mean, that's basically what he's trying to do. He was a master of the telegraph. He was the Steve Jobs of his era. He made the telegraph, clicks and digits and all that. Or he didn't make it. He refined it, clicks and digits and all that stuff, dots and dashes. The only trouble was with the telegraph, if somebody wasn't on the other end, then the message never was transmitted. So he said, what if we create something that will take the transmission and you don't even have to be present? It was like a phone answering service for a telegraph. That's what he was trying to create when he stumbled upon the technology that became the phonograph about 1877. But the phonograph has its problems. It doesn't have even the same level of portability of a tape recorder. So a tape recorder solved some problems the phonograph had. But the tape recorder was big, so the Sony Walkman came along and it solved some problems that the big old magnetic tape, reel-to-reel tape player had. But then it had some problems because you go around with all these CDs and tapes, and you can only do one at a time. And so then along comes the iPod, and it solves some problems that the Walkman created. But then about 2002, 2001, I actually got an early iPod. Still have it, doesn't work, but I still got it. Hate to throw it away. That's okay, I still have my Apple IIe computer. Hate to throw that away too. Someday I will be a museum. Just dawned on me, Jerry. Well, I would go off on a trip, and I had my little iPod, and had my portable speakers, and I had my PDA because I needed that, and then I had my digital camera, and my big old computer that I could watch movies in. And so when I went off, I just had a luggage full of technology that I took with me everywhere I went. Creates a problem. And then they come along with the iPhone. And now the iPhone surfs the web, takes pictures, lets me see videos, answers my phone, has my calendar, keeps photographs. I mean, on and on and on and on. And then, we got the iPad and all this stuff. Where do all these creative ideas come from? We call the people that developed all these things entrepreneurs, creative geniuses. Here's what I discovered. Creative ideas solve existing problems. Every creative idea begins with a problem that somebody's trying to solve. Secondly, creative ideas are built upon things that already exist. The technology of the telegraph informed the technology of the telephone. The technology of the telegraph and telephone informed the technology of the phonograph. The technology of the phonograph informed the technology of the magnetic tape player. The technology of the magnetic tape player informed the Walkman. The Walkman informed the iPod. It was all built on something else. Creative ideas are built on existing ideas. They do not come out of the blue. It's just that somebody sees the same thing everybody else sees, but their perspective is shifted and they see it a little bit differently. And so they take one idea and they combine it with another. How many of you guys have a circular saw? Yeah, power to the people. You can cut with those things. You know that the reason we have circular saws is because of a Quaker woman who was sitting at her spinning wheel, watching her brothers saw wood. And she thought, wouldn't it be something if the saw could be put around the spinning wheel? She saw the same thing everybody else saw, just a little bit differently. That's where we got the circular saw. How many of you have walked through a field and gotten cocoa burrs on your pants or your dress or shorts or socks? Yeah, Cockle burrs have been around since Adam and Eve wore fig leaves. But until a man decided to look at it more closely, George Mestral, after coming in from the field with his dog and trying to get all the cockle burrs off, until he looked at it more closely and said, you know, this could be the idea for a new kind of fastener. Until he did that, Velcro did not exist. But once he did that, and he began to play with that idea and build upon it, that's where Velcro came from.